Hello, and for my 100 sub special, I'm gonna be going over a Yanfei build, at least mine, and maybe some tips and tricks for y'all when building or maining Yanfei. I have been maining Yanfei for over a year now, though I haven't been building her for like the past few months, but she's the character I spent the most time building, so let's just dive right into it. For basics, Yanfei is a Pyro Catalyst user who mostly specializes in charged attacks, but you do not have to invest in her charged attacks for her to do a lot of damage. She can also nuke with her burst, though I don't build her for that because it's not consistent nor practical for her personal use. So let's take a look at my Yanfei build. Currently, she has 45 crit rate, but one of her passives gives her a higher crit rate, and I'll talk about that later. Her crit rate is not as important as crit damage, but I would like to have a pretty high crit rate just so I can consistently crit and have another passive activate when she does crit. So crit damage is pretty low, but for me, again, I prefer crit rate, so 166 is good enough for me. Another important thing about her that I don't have for some reason is a lot of energy recharge, because her burst is pretty important for herself to increase her damage and to have the shield at C4, but I'm gonna assume not everyone's gonna have C4, so I'm gonna talk for both sides. And obviously I have pyro damage. So for weapons, I have the Mappa Mare on her because I'm free to play, so still trying to get the weapon I want, which is the Memory of Dust, or Memory of the Dust, I believe, because the Memory of Dust gives a 100% damage increase for having a shield, and every time you hit an enemy, you get a at lowest 4% damage attack increase, I believe. And though a lot of people say Lost Prayers is good for her because she's on field for most of the time, so she could take advantage of the weapon's passive where the damage increases over 4 seconds each time. But for me, it's more consistent if I just get that damage increase just by having a shield and hitting an opponent. Artifacts, obviously the Crimson Witch for most pyro character, DPS especially. Crimson Witch 4-piece set at least focuses mostly on reaction, so having elemental mastery on her is not a bad idea if you're not gonna go for the charge attack damage. So for Sands, I put attack on her because, well, DPS wants attack, obviously. Have some elemental mastery to help her reactions, and a 3-to-1 crit damage to crit rate is not a bad thing, because again, you want to focus more on crit damage if you want big damage. For her goblet, pyro damage bonus, obviously. Have some energy recharge. I think this is the only thing that gives her energy recharge from all the sets I have. And just and for circlet, I have crit damage, though my circlet could be way better. It's just hard to get good artifacts. Don't murder me. For Constellation, I have C6, but I say most of her constellations are actually not bad for a 4-star, because C1 reduces stamina using charge attack, which is really important because catalyst charge attacks take up a lot of stamina. And when you get to C6, you get an extra seal, which is another 10%, and interruption. You get super armor, is it called? Super armor, or at least just you're less likely to be interrupted. C2 gives you more crit rate when the enemy is below 50 HP. That's why for people who's more focusing on crit damage, crit rate won't be a problem as long as the enemies are below 50 HP. C4, you gain the shield, which is pretty important for the weapon I'm trying to get, the Memory of Dust. And as I said, C6, you get an extra seal, which is also pretty important. When Yanfei consumes a Scarlet Seal, she gets a 5% pyro bonus damage, so for consuming 4 seals, you get a 20% increase. This passive is also pretty important because when you crit, you get a follow-up attack that does 80% of her attack, and this counts as charge attack damage. So that's why I focus more on crit rate, even though I have a crit damage goblet. Let's not talk about that. That's why I focus more on crit rate, so we get that 80% pyro damage for. So for her normal attack, pretty basic. 3 hits and then damage, pyro damage, blah blah blah. Oh yeah, Scarlet Seals last 10 seconds if you don't attack at all. But the important thing is that Scarlet Seals disappear when you swap away from Yanfei. So most of the time you don't even have your Scarlet Seals expiring, because for me, my Yanfei usually is on field for 8 seconds at a time. Usually just to do her burst cycle that I do. Her elemental skill, straightforward, big pyro damage, the end. And you, when the skill hits, gives her max number of seals, which is pretty important with a attack cycle I'm going to show you later. And for the burst, big damage, big area damage, grants Scarlet Seals, and Scarlet Seals regenerate each second over time for 10 seconds? I'm not sure. The cooldown is 20 seconds and the duration is 15, meaning the charge attack bonus lasts for 15 seconds, and the shield. So for me, I have a specific attack pattern that I do with Yanfei when she has her burst up and everything else ready. And we're gonna test it on this little man, the cryo flower, everyone's favorite test subject, or I guess Masanori too, but since the cryo flower is cryo, I can do extra damage. So first we start up with the burst, charge attack, skill, and charge attack again, and that's it. That's my cycle at least. And you can see my Scarlet Seals come back because of the burst, and you could, I guess, charge attack again if you want to. Team comp I use is Xingqiu for Hydro application. You could replace her with Yelan, but I think Xingqiu's more consistent because his range swords come out slower, so your charge attack gets to vape instead of your normal attacks. Because Yelan's Hydro application is a lot quicker than Xingqiu's. And for Kazuha, I don't actually use him much for the shred and his buffs, but more for the crowd control because Yanfei's area damage. So if Kazuha can just suck everything up and then Yanfei just destroys everything that's been sucked up, that's a lot of damage. For Ryan Shogun, I actually use her for overload and the bonus burst damage she provides with her skill. So I'm just gonna fight Masanori like I would normally, just to show how my team works and how Yanfei feels for people who don't know if they're gonna build Yanfei or not.
Let me read you a verse. Rain outlines your fate. Motion to compel. Illusion shot. Into the wind. As one with wind and cloud. Shine down. Incinerate. Know my sword. Rain cutter. Rain outlines your face. There is no escape. Breath of the flame.
Ah, she didn't crit. Well, that is about all I have to say. Hopefully I inspired people to become a Yanfei main, or helped anyone who wanted to build Yanfei but don't know what to do. So, thanks for watching, and see you!